Hello and welcome to this Game Pit Stop for Pandemic Rising Tide, designed by Leacock and Jeroen, Doumen, published by Z-Man Games, and a standalone pandemic game in the survival series, in which, rather than fighting diseases across the world, you're going to be attempting to recreate the engineering efforts in the Netherlands from the 19th century onwards and prevent the rise of the water level reclaiming too much of your land. In Pandemic Rising Tide, some of it is quite familiar. You control up to 4 characters who move around the board attempting to remove these cubes of water. At the end of each player's turn, you're going to draw 2 cards from the player's deck, and then you're going to draw a number of Dykes Fail cards according to where the sea level is. But obviously there are some differences. In terms of moving around the board, it's quite familiar. You can move from one region to an adjacent region for an action. You can discard the card of your own region to move anywhere. And you can also discard the card of another region in order to move directly there. You can discard a card of a region you're in order to build a port. Once a port is built on a region, any player can move there for one action. Other things you can do are pump the water out of regions for one action. Now, there is something you can do to help with that. If you discard the card of your region, you can put a pumping station in there and you get a little token on top of here. Every turn, this pumping station is going to attempt to pump some water out of that area. In the player deck, as well as there being helpful power cards and event cards, there's also the storm cards, which replace the epidemic cards in the base game. Now they're going to cause the sea level to rise, which will cause the sea level to rise in the 2 sea areas if they're both still in the game. That's going to cause flooding, which we'll come to later. Also causes a major breach, which familiarly you take the bottom card off the Dykes Fail deck, and that's going to cause 3 Dyke Fails in that area. Now this is Ruin Overmass down here. For Dyke Fails, first of all you remove dykes from the area affected, and then if there are no dykes left, you add water cubes to there. Then you're going to shuffle up the discards, put them back on top, and the areas that have been hit previously are going to be hit again. Now, whenever you draw a card normally during the Dyke Fails part of your player turn, again, you're just going to take 1 dyke away from that area, or if there's no dykes, you're going to add water there, which is all well and good. But there is a 5th phase, a new one here, and that is that water flows. Now you're going to check every area on the board that has 3 cubes in, and if there's any adjacent areas that have not got a dyke between them, they are going to go up to 2 cubes. In this case, flooding in from the North Sea and the Zuiderzee. And then you're going to check the areas that have 2 cubes in them, and any adjacent area that doesn't have at least 1 cube is going to get 1 cube in there, again, unless you've built your effective dyke defense system. If you ever run out of water cubes, which we very nearly have here, that is one of the instant fail conditions. The other instant fail condition is if the player deck ever runs out. You want to be building dykes in regions, which is another one of the basic actions, and in doing so, you're going to slow down the spread of water, which is going to help you out rather greatly. Now, in order to win, you need to build these 5 major engineering projects, which each appear in a particular region of the board. And you're going to, again, familiarly, spend 5 cards of the same colour in order to build them. Now, they also have effects as soon as you build them. For example, this one turns the Zuiderzee now into an inland area. You can never remove cubes from the sea, but you can now from the Zuiderzee. If you build these 2, that adds lots of dykes to their particular areas. And down here, you're going to remove water. Ways to help you out include the events that appear in the player deck, which allow you to take more actions, let you check out the player deck, see if there's any storm cards and move them downwards, remove water cubes, place extra dykes, move your pawns around, or even skip the Dykes Fail step on the turn. Now, again, familiar with Pandemic, all the different characters have got their own special powers, and 7 of them come in this game. The pump operator removes 2 cubes at once from 2 adjacent regions when she pumps. The hydraulic engineer builds 2 dykes at once. The carpenter can add dykes to a region even if there's water in the region they're in, which you cannot usually do. The portmaster can build ports without having to discard a card and can move them around. The director can move you to areas with water in. The warehouse manager, as long as they're in with a port, can hand cards to other players, and the sanitation engineer can dig through the player discard pile in order to get cards out. Now that are all the rules for the base game. However, included in the game are some objective cards which let you mix things up. Now there's a guide as to how hard you want to make the game, but you can use these objective cards in order to mix and match what you're trying to do. For example, you do have the basic objectives in there. This is to build this purple Asfluitdijk. There's the water snood is one of the special objectives. Now, there's 4 of these for different regions. For the orange one, the water snood, you clear all the dikes that are next to the sea and you absolutely flood the orange area. And if you ever get the orange area with no cubes in, you've achieved that objective. Or there's population objectives, which introduce population cubes into the board. And when you're placing them, that's going to help you achieve that particular objective. However, if areas with population in there flood, you start to lose population. And if ever you lose 5 population cubes, that is the last instant loss condition if you're playing with those objectives variant. This has been a Game Pit stop for Pandemic Rising Tide. For more videos like this, check out the Game Pit channel on YouTube. And for more in-depth coverage of gaming, please find the Game Pit podcast. Thank you.